Good morning. My name is Larry Schwartz. I'm the Secretary to Governor Cuomo. I'd like to welcome everyone here today to the New York's first Yogurt Summit. And I also would like to thank everyone not only for coming and participating at today's Yogurt Summit, but I'd like to say both in English, thank you, as well as in Greek, Efaristo, for believing and investing in New York. Before we begin today's program, I'd like to introduce our legislative partners. First, I'd like to introduce the Speaker of the Assembly, the Honorable Sheldon Silver. I would like to introduce Senator Jim Seward, who is the Chair of the Senate Ag Committee, and here also representing Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos. I would like to introduce Assemblyman William McGee, who's the Chair of the Assembly Ag Committee. Thank you. I would also like to introduce some of the members of the Governor's Cabinet that are here today participating in the Yogurt Summit. Commissioner Darrell Orbatine, Commissioner of the New York State Ag and Markets. Commissioner Joe Martens, Commissioner of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And I'd also like to introduce Gil Quiones, the President and CEO of the New York State Power Authority. Before we begin our program, I'd like to go around the table and have all of our special guests introduce themselves who are here with us today. If we could start from that end of the table.
I'm Dale Stein, Vice Chair of the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee. I am a dairy farmer in business with my two brothers, my son and my nephew. We are in Leroy, New York. We milk 780 cows and we are 12 miles from the two new yogurt plants.
I'm Ron Podolak. I'm the Executive Director for the Cayuga County Soil and Water Conservation District in the Finger Lakes region in New York.
My name is Eric Ohms. I'm the Vice President of New York Farm Bureau, and my family and I, my two brothers and father and I, milk 450 cows in Columbia County, just south of here in Kinderhook.
I'm David Haight. I'm the New York State Director for the American Farmland Trust.
Neil Ray, dairy farmer from Washington County, family farm, been in our family for 200 years. Proud to be chairman of Agrimark. Our members own the Chattagate plant, and we are very thankful for New York to helping us to keep that operating and running smoothly. Thank you.
Tom Overton, I'm a professor in dairy management at Cornell and director of the Pro Dairy program, which is funded through the Department of Ag and Markets. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Greg Wickham, CEO of Dairy Lee and Dairy Marketing Services. Our partners in the joint venture are Dairy Farmers of America and St. Albans, and we market about 7,000 farms milk in the northeastern United States.
Bob Smith, Senior Vice President, Farm Credit East, Cobblestone, New York.
Kevin Ellis, I'm the CEO of Cayuga Marketing and Cayuga Milk Ingredients. I represent 26 dairy farmers in central New York with 32,000 cows, and we're in the process of building a processing plant in Auburn, New York.
Gary Dake, President of Stewart Shops, vertically integrated convenience store chain that buys milk from 35 local farms, sells it through 328 convenience stores.
Dean Norton, President of New York Farm Bureau. We're a 30,000 member organization. My family is a fifth generation dairy farm in western New York, milking about 900 cows.
Robert Shea, the CFO of FIA. We're manufacturing FIA yogurt here in New York State.
Mike McMahon, Easy Acres Dairy in Homer, 699 cow dairy, and chair of the Cortland County Industrial Development Agency.
Catherine Bohr, I'm Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Cornell University and Director of the Milk Quality Improvement Program at Cornell University.
We can go down to that end of the table, please. Phil.
Peter Wilcox, Senior Director of Government Affairs for PepsiCo, representing Mueller Quaker Dairy, our new joint venture in Batavia, New York.
Jim Alatris, I'm the Governor's Deputy Secretary for Policy.
Scott Herring, President and Chief Operating Officer of Farm Credit East, financial services cooperative that covers the Northeast states, about 12,000 members, about a $4.5 billion investment in Northeast agriculture.
Good morning, Mike Seaver, HP Hood Dairy Company, Vice President our operations, and we operate 4 plants in New York State, employing about 400 people.
I'm Paul Toretta, president of CH4 Biogas. We have the largest on-farm power-producing digester in Wyoming County, New York. We're proud to be part of the sustainability of farming in state of New York.
Neil Raymond, a dairy farmer from Cayuga County and president of NEDPA. We have about 110 farmer members representing about 20% of the milk in the state.
I'm Bill Byrne, chairman of the board of Byrne Dairy. Located in Syracuse, we operate 3 processing plants.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo. I'm Roger Parker, Director of Operations for Alpina Foods, based in Sopo, Colombia. Buenos dias. And I am proud to be representing Alpina, the first dairy operation and first operation for Colombia, as far as we know, here in the U.S., in Batavia, New York. So thank you.
John Noble, dairy farmer, Livingston County, 6 generations.
Dan Wolf, dairy farmer from Wayne County. My wife and family operate a 450-cow dairy farm. I also serve as president chairman of the board Upstate Niagara Cooperative, 360-some members in western New York.
Larry Webster, I'm the chief executive officer of Upstate Niagara Cooperative. We're operating 5 dairy plants in New York right now, 2 of those being yogurt, one in West Seneca outside of Buffalo and one in North Lawrence.
Good morning, I'm Carrie Adams, dairy farmer from Ontario County. My husband and I milk 170 cows, and I'm a 4th generation farmer.
Good morning, I'm Dave Langebury, Vice President for Sourcing for Danone in North America. We're celebrating our 70th year of making yogurt in the U.S.
And I'm Jim McConaughey. I'm the CFO of Chobani, the leading yogurt brand in the U.S.
Thank you very much.
Good thing you went last.
Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. Since Governor Cuomo took office 19 months ago, he laid out a blueprint and put us on a path towards a new New York, a New York that works again, a new New York that works for the people of our Empire State, a new New York that works to create jobs and get people back to work. We are here today not only to listen and learn, but to act, to work with our dairy farmers, our yogurt producers, and other stakeholders to make our yogurt industry expand, grow, and prosper here in New York. Under Governor Cuomo's new New York blueprint, we are here not only to understand how state government can assist our dairy farms and our yogurt producers, but how we can be your working partner. Under Governor Cuomo, state government is here to have a positive working relationship with agriculture and business, not an adversarial one. The yogurt business is thriving, especially the burgeoning Greek yogurt industry. And Governor Cuomo and our legislative partners are going to actively ensure that it continues to thrive here in New York. It is now my honor to introduce our host, a person who has restored faith, hope, and confidence back to the state of New York, back into our state government, and I say that not as his secretary, but I say that as a lifelong New York resident. It was that I'd like to introduce now the great governor of our great state, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. First of all, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and thank you for all the work it took to set this summit up. It wasn't easy to do, and I thank you very much and the entire team. Thank all of you who have taken the time to come, who came from all across the state, and took time out from busy schedules and growing businesses to be with us today. I'd also like to thank my partners in government. The speaker was introduced, and you'll hear from Speaker Silver in a moment, and the Senate Assistant Majority Leader, Senator Seward, who you'll hear from in a moment. It's important they are here because, as Larry said, one of the things we've done over the past 18 months is we've changed government from not just a place of conversation and endless dialogue to a vehicle of action. And the partnership with the legislature makes Albany less of a debating society and more of an entity that actually can accomplish things. So I thank them very much for being here today, and I thank them very much for the partnership that they brought. This is somewhat of a different convening. I think it's safe to say the state of New York has never had a yogurt summit before. So congratulations. This is an historic day that you can all go home and say, I was at the first yogurt summit ever in the history of the state of New York. But not just a yogurt summit. It's a different type of convening for the state government across the board. It's not just that there hasn't been a yogurt summit. There's never really been this kind of interaction between a business group and the state government. And we're trying to change that. We're trying to fundamentally change the relationship between government and the private sector and the role of government. We've introduced something 18 months ago we call entrepreneurial government. That we have entrepreneurial government operating. And that term is a provocative term. When people say entrepreneurial government, that's an oxymoron. You can't have government that's entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial is quick, is creative, is energetic. And I say, yes, and your point is? They think that's inconsistent with government. Well, that may have been in the past, but why should it be in the future? Why should government be anything other than entrepreneurial? Why shouldn't government be creative and facilitating and interested in enterprise? Why government shouldn't operate just as well as the fastest, most entrepreneurial companies? Change in thinking, paradigm shift, a different vision. But that's what we have to get to. And that's the spirit that we're trying to infuse in state government, entrepreneurial government. How does the government partner and facilitate business growth? That is a different combination than we've seen in the past. But I am convinced that's the combination that we're going to need going forward. The economic competition, and I don't have to tell you, is fierce all across this country, all across this globe. And the states and the regions that come together best are going to be the winners. I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of it. You show me where you have the best partnership, the tightest partnership, the most creative partnership between government and the private sector, and then among that industry in the private sector, and I'll show you the regions that are going to do well. I was in Washington for 8 years during the Clinton administration. I ran a department called Housing and Urban Development that, contrary to the name, primarily was about economic development. And at that time, we were just on the cusp of a different school of economic development. The old school of economic development was what they called the Big Bang Theory, that an area, a state, had lost a large number of jobs, plant moved out, and 1,000 jobs were gone. And the answer was supposed to be that a new plant moves in and creates 1,000 jobs. And we tried to do that for many years. And it was unsuccessful. Why? Because the economy doesn't work that way anymore. There are no employers who are moving in and going to create 1,000 jobs. There are 10 employers who maybe you can bring in who will create 100 jobs each. But it's a different economic model and therefore a different government approach. If you're really lucky, you can develop a cluster economy, which is what? Which is a cluster of smaller businesses that come together and form a concentration and form a synergy because there is a business advantage to being together. That's Silicon Valley. One, then another, and then it takes on a life of its own and it grows a mass because there's a business advantage to being within that business community. There's an exchange of ideas, there's a supply chain, there are people and talent who have these ideas who can go back and forth. That's what we have in Albany with nanotech. It is a cluster economy where businesses now come because they want to be with the other businesses. and they want to be in that synergistic environment. These cluster economies don't just happen, they don't come down from space. Maybe they begin randomly, but then they are planned and they are developed and they are facilitated. What you gentlemen and ladies are doing, we believe, can be a great cluster economy for the state of New York. And it can do great things for your businesses, and it can grow your businesses, which we want to see desperately, and it can be helpful to the overall New York economy. The numbers on yogurt production are staggering. The amount of yogurt production now over 500 million pounds, I mean, it's unbelievable, the rate of growth. We had 14 plants, we're now up to 49 plants across the state. And the synergy between the yogurt manufacturing and the dairy industry is doubly exciting for us. Because the dairy industry is an industry that we want to grow. It's an important part of this state's economy. It's an important part of the fabric of this state and the communities of this state. The farms are vital to us. And to have a marriage between the dairy industry and the yogurt industry where we can help both, that's doubly exciting, as I said. We've already seen an increase in the dairy industry. We had about 8,000 employees in the dairy industry now. It's gone up about 14% since 2005. So we've already seen growth just letting the market work. Which brings us to today. And there are two basic and simple questions. The first question is, what is government doing that is not helpful? What are we doing that are obstacles? What are we doing wrong would be the simple way of saying it. Please bring candor and frankness. We are in a business where everyone is a critic. We hear every day what we do wrong in volumes from multiple sources on a continuing rolling basis. So don't worry about our feelings, that you will hurt our feelings, because we have no feelings left if you're in this business. So that's not going to happen. So please be frank. What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? What are we doing that maybe was a good idea, but in effect, it's not turning out to be a good idea? What are the obstacles that a law, regulation, DEC, ag, what's not working? Second, how do we become a full partner, and what can we do together or amongst ourselves to grow the industry? How do we develop the product? How do we find more applications for yogurt? How do we find a greater supply of the milk from New York dairy farms? Because I want to make sure that we're meeting the need of the yogurt manufacturers with New York milk. And if we have to increase production, we want to find out how to increase production. How do we work with academic universities to form a relationship with academic universities where we're doing R&D on yogurt and the related products? So we're staying ahead of the market. And the next new idea in this industry comes from New York. Those are the two basic questions. What are we doing wrong? What can we do together in a spirit of cooperation that winds up helping all of us and helping the state of New York? It is somewhat of a different engagement, and that's what makes it exciting. Change can be good. Change is threatening on one level, but it's exciting on another. And I really believe we've already demonstrated, you've already demonstrated, great success in this industry. And it's been a tremendous benefit for the state. And all the arrows are pointed up. We just want to make sure that those arrows stay pointed up, and we want to see if there's a way we can make it even better. Let me end where I started. Thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you for participating in this new venture and in this new partnership. Thank you.
Governor Cuomo. I'd now like to introduce the great leader of the New York State Assembly, the Speaker of the New York State Assembly, the Honorable Sheldon Silver.
Thank you very much, Larry. You know, it isn't often I disagree with the governor, but I just want to say one thing. I have some feelings left. Be gentle.
Wait till the end of the morning, right?
I can honestly say that in all my years in state government, this is, for sure, the first time I've been to a yogurt summit. I do want to commend Governor Cuomo for bringing us all together this morning. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize my colleague, Assemblyman Bill McGee, who is with us today. As chairman of the Assembly's Agriculture Committee, I can tell you New York farmers and agricultural community have no greater friend than Bill McGee. I've worked with Bill in the Assembly for more than 20 years, and he is a tireless advocate for New York's farmers. Together, agriculture and its related industries are among the most important economic engines in the state of New York today. From Fayette to Chobani to PepsiCo, dairy farming is especially important to our continued economic recovery. Our investment in this industry, the farmers, the manufacturers, the distributors, has an economic ripple effect throughout our state. This has been demonstrated by the partnership between the state of New York and PepsiCo to create their Genesee County yogurt manufacturing facilities. This initiative alone stands to create close to 200 new jobs. That's 200 new salaries to support hard-working families in New York State. As I and my Assembly majority colleagues have been saying for 2 decades, we need to build upon New York's competitive advantages. Agriculture, the dairy farming in particular, is one of those strengths. It is the job creation approach that we have been acting upon all along. Dairy farming and processing combined are an $8.9 billion business in the state of New York. They support a marketplace that's growing and thriving due in no small part to government working in concert with private industry. The key is partnership. Today's event provides a superb illustration of that. We must work together, government and business, to retain the companies that we have, to attract new companies to our state, and to nurture the spirit of entrepreneurship that lives and breathes in every county in our state. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has already declared that New York is among the top states for economic growth and quality of life. If we make it our mission, there is no reason why we cannot make New York the yogurt capital of the United States, if not the world. We in the Assembly are committed to ensuring that this industry thrives in the Empire State. We have the leadership in Governor Cuomo working in concert with the legislature to get it done, to make it happen. And so I am delighted to work with our partners in government to make this another first for New York.
Thank you, Speaker Silver. Now I'd just like to introduce again Senator Jim Seward, who's on the Senate Ag Committee. Senator Seward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. And I certainly want to begin by thanking Governor Cuomo for convening this summit and for all the key members of the Cuomo administration for being here, and all of you for participating. This is an historic event, the first yogurt summit in New York State, but I think it signifies how important this industry is to the state of New York and our future. And I appreciate the opportunity to represent our Senate Majority Leader, Dean Skelos, and our entire conference at this very important event, which draws attention to New York's #1 industry, agriculture, and the rapidly emerging yogurt manufacturing industry in our state. You know, farming and all of the related agribusinesses are absolutely vital to our economy and to our way of life in New York State. And I'm particularly encouraged to see the recent explosion of yogurt making in New York, and particularly Greek yogurt. This relatively new product has brought ever-increasing business to the backbone of our state's agriculture industry, and that is dairy farming. You know, I have been particularly fortunate to partner, and I'll give one more commercial, to the #1 Greek yogurt maker in the country, Chobani, which is located in my district. You know, this innovative leader has blossomed from a small business in Shenango County to an international sensation. And with that growth, job opportunities for so many, and the ripple effect, very positive ripple effect economically in a region that is desperate for jobs and positive economic news. And of course, Chobani is one of so many other yogurt makers that now dot our New York State landscape. We must seize, it seems to me, we must seize this momentum and cultivate this growing industry and build on that natural synergy between our dairy industry and other aspects of agriculture and yogurt production. You know, the best thing about Greek yogurt in particular is that it takes a lot of milk to produce Greek yogurt. Chobani, for example, uses approximately 3 million pounds of milk a day. Now, our cows are working overtime, and they need some help. We need to do everything we can at the state level to make it easier for our farmers to expand and meet this newfound demand. New York-produced yogurt should be made with local New York milk. And I echo the governor's sentiments when I say that. Very, very important. You know, by cutting government red tape and working with our farmers, we can ensure that they share in the success of the popular yogurt trend. That's good for New York agriculture, that's good for our yogurt manufacturers, and it's good for all New Yorkers. Yogurt is a healthy choice for consumers, and it sure is healthy for our New York economy. You know, for too many years in the past, we've seen those news stories, farms going out of business and livestock being sold at auction. You know, with the leadership of the Cuomo administration partnering with those of us in the legislature and the private sector represented here at the table today, those reports can be a thing of the past, replaced with success stories, farms expanding, prospering, offering future generations a successful business and a successful future. You know, the seeds have been planted, and it's now up to those of us in state government to work with our farmers and others in the private sector to nurture the budding yogurt industry for the benefit of all. So again, I want to thank Governor Cuomo for his esteemed leadership in this important endeavor. I want to thank all of you for participating. And speaking on behalf of the Senate, we look forward to working with all of you for a successful and healthy future for farming, agribusiness, yogurt makers, and all New Yorkers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Seward. Now we're going to hear from a number of people that represents both small and large farms, our yogurt manufacturers. They're going to make presentations to us, and I would like to first start with Rob Shea, who's the Chief Financial Officer for FIA. Rob?
FIA, not Chobani. Thank you for having us. I'm happy to represent FIA here at the New York Yogurt Summit, first yogurt summit of its kind, as mentioned by the governor. I just want to also thank New York for all it's done for FIA to date, and FIA looks forward to a very long and successful partnership with New York State for years to come. We first began importing product into New York around 1998. New York had a local Greek community down in Queens, and they had a couple of food distributors down there, and it just made sense for us to start there. And once we started importing the products of the distributors, we opened our own office in Woodside, and that was really the genesis of the growth of FIA. We went door to door to all the bodegas and supermarkets in Manhattan, and today we're coast to coast, available in every state, and soon we'll be exporting outside the country as well. So it's been great. We came to New York because milk is one of the great reasons. First of all, we were already in New York. New York State made us feel welcome here. We had ample labor out in the enterprise zone in Johnstown. We had access to transportation, and we had access to the great dairy industry and the loads of milk that we need to make the product. So it's been very successful. We started out with, we got a capital grant in the beginning, and we also got a community development block grant for creating the jobs out in Johnstown, so that was very helpful as well. And we were also part of the Queasy program for the enterprise zone that was designated out in Johnstown as well, so that was very supportive as well as FIA moved into the industry. Going forward, we started out at a 6,000-ton capacity plant when they started designing it, and as demand started to pick up, they redesigned it, and we ended up building an 18,000-ton capacity plant. We already expanded it in 2010 to make 45,000 tons, and in 2011 and 2012 we expanded again, and now we're at about 85,000-ton capacity, and we expect to be out of that capacity in the near future, and we are looking to expand again, as you well know, hopefully right on that same site in Johnstown, New York. So it's been a wonderful story. I've personally been with the company since 2008, and there's been construction since I got there. I mean, we started making yogurt, and the trucks never left. So we're very happy here, and we're very happy to continue in New York State. The biggest access, I mean, we're looking to see a little more support from New York State for the ancillary businesses. I mean, obviously the farmers are represented here. More support for the farmers to make sure there's an ample supply of milk. But we also use, the transportation business, the waste disposal business in Johnstown, box manufacturers. All those ancillary businesses that feed into making the yogurt, I think should be looked at as well, and not just yogurt and milk. There's other businesses as well.
Okay, great.
May I ask him a question? I told you everyone's a critic, didn't I? Even my own team. Are there problems in the supply? You're right, we've been focusing on milk and the milk production. Are there other issues in the supply chain? If we were to go down the supply chain, are there other issues that we would find?
There's not specific issues that I have right at the moment, but I think when you focus on industry things, I'm sure you have people on your staff who focus on transportation industries and other industries like that, and they should be really looking at the limitations on those industries that are maybe incumbent on them from providing a more efficient economic service to the yogurt industry. I think they shouldn't be ignored. It shouldn't just be milk and yogurt. And the thing that, and it's not just support that New York State gives us, it's also, I think, when you look to the future, I think it's going to be more just creating the demand. I mean, we're here to make the yogurt, and we'll sell as much yogurt as people want to eat. So I think another way that New York State could help is to get involved in maybe, advertising the products that New York State sells, and particularly, the yogurt products and the companies that intend to expand within New York State and stay in New York State to promote those products and create that greater demand.
By the way, I did violate the protocol. We're going to hear and have a number of presentations and then a dialogue. So I apologize for the protocol violation. Thank you for excusing it. Thank you, Rob Wilson.
But you're the boss, you get to do that.
Absolutely.
It's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
The next speaker that we'd like to have make a presentation is Robert Parkhurst, who's the Director of North American Operations for Alpina.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for this opportunity. On behalf of Alpina, I said again, thank you. Your two questions are very appropriate. We don't have enough experience yet to talk about a lot of the negative things we've experienced, because we've experienced a lot of positive things. And I'd like to talk more about those aspects of what we've experienced in the almost a year since we've been working with New York State and developing our facility in Batavia, New York. And also identify some other opportunities for synergies with other industry in addition to the dairy farmers. Alpena supports in its philosophy local activity and its development as a facility. I'm from New York. I've grown up in New York. I'm a New York native, so I'm proud to come back from Minneapolis to work in New York and develop this facility. So I'm proud to be part of this initiative to not make us a cheddar state, but a yogurt state. Yogurt's been around the state for a while, but with Chobani's effort in Greek and Fajes, we've now distinguished ourselves in the yogurt community, which we can leverage as a state. And I think you've done a good job of that. What we've seen is very positive things that have gone on in Batavia is the skill set of the Economic Development Council in Genesee County. They came up with the Ag Park idea. We were the first to impact and take advantage of it. The state was very helpful in providing us the monies to make it an economic decision, positive decision for Alpena. We were competing with Pennsylvania at the time. Sorry, but they lost, you won. And the people of Batavia won, and they're taking advantage of that. So I appreciate the work of the Genesee Economic Development Council to make that happen, and made a shovel-ready facility. Within 21 days, we were able to get on the land. I don't think you'll see that around the country very often. So again, congratulations, and thank you for that opportunity. In addition, though, we've seen some other advantages that New York State has to offer. We're buying our fillers equipment here in New York State from Deer Park down by the city. We're using Feldmeyer tanks in Little Falls. We're using Anderson Instruments. So New York State has a lot more to offer than just a manufacturing site. You have supporting resources that also allow us to support New York State in other ways that will expand jobs or if nothing else, maintain jobs. So we appreciate that, and we take advantage of it, and my prior experience here in New York helped me to leverage that as well. But we've talked about the manufacturing equipment that we need to run the facility. We're also taking advantage of Cornell University. We've already used them numerous times to help train not only the management team here in the U.S. and in Miami, but also in Colombia. We've also used them to train our employees with a very basic understanding of how dairy works. In the manufacturing sector, we're challenged by the quality of the folks that we bring in and understanding the role of dairy and how it makes the job work. Cornell has been very helpful, and this week, in fact, we had a 3-day session with them explaining to our employees how to use dairy and the importance of dairy and the sanitation around dairy. So another ancillary support that we get from being in New York State that we wouldn't have if we were in another facility, another state. RIT has been also very helpful with their expertise in packaging technology. They're one of the top institutions in the U.S. for packaging technology, and we've leveraged that as well, bringing our team in from Colombia to also export the knowledge that we've seen in RIT to Colombia, which has Alpena, which has facilities throughout South America, not just in Colombia. So these are positive opportunities that I've identified. I haven't got to the point where I have to focus on the negatives, but the positive, learning from the positives also may point out things that you're not aware of. So I bring that to the table, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Parkhurst. I'd now like to ask Mr. James McConaughey, the Chief Financial Officer of Chobani, if he would make a presentation.
Thank you. Governor, first of all, thank you for having us here today, and for all of your administration has done to support us to date. As America's #1 selling yogurt brand, we're honored to be here today and to work alongside the farmers and the people of New York to help grow the state's economy. We particularly understand and agree with your comments on the link between yogurt and the farmers. There is no yogurt without the farmers, and they're vital to our success. If I dial it back a little bit and tell what really the Chobani story is, the Chobani story is really about the rebirth in America. Hamdi had a vision. He started a business in 2005 by buying an abandoned factory, a factory that was being closed by a large food manufacturer. And he invested in this factory by having a belief in the community to support the growth, the farmers, the employees, the residents, and the various government constituents. Early on, Hamdi had help of some small business loans and some block grants. I know, for example, that one of the block grants has now been repaid, or the loan has been repaid rather, and that money's now being invested back by Chenango County with the farmers. And it's that support that's critical. The support that we've got through the Empire Zone program, the CDBG program, and others have been successful. And as a result of this, we've already invested over $200 million in manufacturing in New York State. I think there's an opportunity for other things to come. We'll talk more about that. The Chobani story is that we make wholesome, nutritious products without the use of artificial ingredients. We use traditional, authentic straining processes. It's very important to the farmers and to the community because we start and use whole milk, and we use 3 pounds of whole milk to make a pound of Chobani yogurt. And actually, Senator, as an update, we're using close to 4 million pounds of milk a day right now. So we've grown substantially, and we will continue to grow substantially. What's the impact on the local community? Job creation. We've created 1,400 jobs globally since inception in 2005. Most of those are right here in New York. We know that there's a big impact on the dairy industry. We've proven the 7-to-1 multiplier between the farmers and the veterinarians and the people making feed and transportation. We know that we've helped turn around what was a contracting industry in the state in terms of milk production to be a source of growth. Obviously, there's the trickle-down economics that follow through this. When you go into New Berlin, one of the local restaurateurs, I was in there with a businessman one day, and he said, Hamdi saved this town. The foot traffic in that town is way up, and you can't measure it in just dollars. You can see it in attitudes and smiles and what the people are believing. We support the local businesses and contractors. In the last year, we increased our spending over the prior year at least $50 million with local businesses and contractors. We support local and community events, and we have a very active Shepherd's Gift Foundation. We built a baseball field in New Berlin and donated to the town. We built community centers in both Columbus and South Edmiston, and I'm sure that through the Shepherd's Gift Foundation, we'll continue to support the community. If we go back to the dairy industry, we're committed to supporting the local farmers and communities. And our belief in making products only from fresh milks, that the ripple effect is right here in New York. I think honestly that we've rippled out to some of the border states, if I got it right, Craig. But most of the milk comes from New York, and we're excited that the effect is right here. Why is it important? It's important, and I don't think a lot of people understood this previous, because dairy is one of the largest economic drivers in upstate New York, and that nearly all of the revenue generated at local dairy farms stays in the community. It doesn't go outside of the community. So the ripple effect is dramatic. So what's our story? It's a little bit of an Olympic story. We started with 6 people. We have the 1,400 I talked about earlier. We worked hard. We've never been given up, and we've been fueled by the support of the community in the state. Right now, Chobani is available not only in New York, but in Australia and Canada. Australia, we're now making a product in Australia, but when we started, we made all the product here, and the product in Canada we're making here right now as well. What's next? As we look forward, we see continued growth and investment. Possible projects include alternative methods to consume the whey, which was alluded to earlier. Amongst these strategies could be energy-producing digesters. Follow-on technologies to support the business growth could also be in place. And maybe one of the questions that you were alluding to earlier is, for example, we currently purchase fruit and cups for our product outside the state. Would it be possible to have that product come inside the state? Would that be more cost-effective for us, and would that generate additional business for the state and the local communities? We will focus on making our products available rather, to additional markets, including schools. We believe there's a large opportunity to improve the yogurt consumption in schools. We're going to continue to build a stronger workforce through training and technology. And obviously, we're going to continue the strong bond with the community and the farming community. We'd like to thank you again for having us, and we'd like to invite you, anybody that's in New York City, to visit our new cafe on Princeton, West Broadway, where we're trying to bring the awareness of yogurt to the consumer to a higher level. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very impressive story. And I love the advertisements that you ran during the Olympics. I thought they were brilliant. They were nice for New York State also, but they were really beautiful.
We actually got some feedback that tracked how the different Olympic campaigns run, and our campaign came out at the top.
Really, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you, sir. I'd now like to introduce Kerry Adams from Black Brook Farm.
So I'm going to address your first question is, what is the government that is doing that is not helpful? We started farming in 1981 with 60 cows. We have done incremental growth over the years because I feel any business, as we've already heard, to be successful has to grow. And so we've done that model. I think we've done it very successfully. We've been a very profitable farm, even though our numbers are small. We benchmark very well against the large farms in this state. We are in the process of doing another expansion right now, which is going to take us to 199 cows. And that's kind of where we're at a threshold at this point. The building addition that we're doing is going to add $1,200 worth of debt per cow on our farm. For us to go over the 200 cow limit of CAFO regulations, it would, our debt per cow would then go up another $2,400 just to meet the regulations. Right now, if we look at cost of production, the protein that we're using to feed our cows is 47% higher than what we paid a year ago. Our price of milk is 24% less than it was a year ago. So for us to go over that 200 cow threshold is, we really just literally cannot do it. So it would be very helpful, I would think, if you would either raise the limit, because I don't feel that our farm is a unique small farm. I think there's farms out there that want to grow, but that CAFO regulation does put a limit on it. I also think that because of economies of scale, making it due us on day one, that's really the crux of the matter. You know, if you could grow your business as we have done, and then you could add on to meet the regulations that are needed, it would be much more helpful. I feel that we are good stewards of the land, and I don't want to send the image that I think that the CAFO regulations are wrong. I'm just saying that I think it's very hard on a small farm to meet those regulations. It's spreading those costs over 200 cows versus 700 cows really makes a big difference. So I did want to make that comment. You asked about how to become a full partner. I think a lot of our profitabilities that we've had, we've been assisted by programs that the state offers, such as Pro Dairy, the Nice Chat program, which we participate in. We've done NYSERDA grant money. We've received money from AIM. So I think for the state to continue doing the grant program is very helpful to the states. I think we also need to be sure that we're putting dollars towards research, because I think a key part for making the dairy industry successful is making sure there's different products out there. Just heard the story the other day of Paleo string cheese. Paleo created string cheese, which was kind of a unique product. Now they're putting all different flavors in it. So now you can buy jalapeno pepper string cheese. And, you know, those are the things that we need to do to develop different products for us to be able to market our milk. I would also like to say that I think we need to be, as a dairy farmer, we need to be able to use the technologies that are available for us to be able to really grow our products. There are technologies out there that are available that we can't use, such as, I will say, our BST certainly is one. You know, our farm, we used it. We had to stop using it. We have not gotten our production back that we had prior to our BST free. It's a safe product, but yet there's a consumer image out there. I think for the state to really spend some time on educating the consumer on the technologies. We have a big challenge ahead of us to feed the world, and if we're going to feed the world in a safe, affordable, and abundant way, we have to be able to use these technologies. So I think that's pretty crucial. The last statement that I'd like to make, I'm sure, I want you to be sure that this is just my own personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the dairy industry as a whole, but I find it very ironic that we are sitting here talking about growing milk in New York State when the dairy farmers are sitting here wondering what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. with the Farm Bill when they are talking about implementing a voluntary supply management program. I understand that it's voluntary. I have great fears that if you ever put a supply management of any kind in the Farm Bill, that it makes it much easier to make it mandatory down the road. And so I really see a great clashing of opinions here between the state and federal order, and both of those, you know, the state affects us, but also so what goes on at the federal. So thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Terry.
I would now like to ask John Noble from Noblehurst Farms Incorporated to make a presentation, please.
Swing the pendulum the other way. We operate 5 CAFOs in Western New York. And frankly, I believe that the CAFO program has been very solid. There are always challenges in any program that tries to paint the brush over a 2,000 cow dairy and use those same regulations over a 200 cow dairy. So the implementation of how regulations are done. But I think to a person, the dairy farmers in this room would agree that the stewardship of the land and the resources is probably the most important thing we do, because all of us are trying to get these businesses to another generation for them to be vibrant and vital as we have been over our time. So I applaud what the state has done. There are challenges. I think looking at things reasonably is an important thing. I think getting state agencies to work together so that we're not, you know, continually rewriting the rules and filing new reports. But by and large, our relationship with the DEC and Ag and Markets has been wonderful, and I encourage that dialogue and continued work. I'd like to answer one question primarily is, you know, what does the state need to do to incent businesses like ours to make the necessary investments to serve this new market? And to me, there's 2 things I'd like to talk about. One is we need to discover a new pricing model. And right now, our price is dependent on how much whole milk powder is bought in China. It has nothing to do with the need for the yogurt manufacturers in New York State. I don't have an answer for that, but we need to talk about it. Secondly, I think we need a closer relationship between the producer and the processor. We have a wonderful relationship. We're cooperative members, but a cooperative CEO cannot add cows. A dairy farmer adds cows. Somehow we have to have that linkage between the farmer directly with the processor. Thirdly, I think we need to be able to figure out a way to mitigate the risk. If you look at the dairy industry over the last 3 years, the dairies themselves have made no money over 3 years. Farming has made money. Where we've run crops through cows, we've been profitable. But the dairies themselves have not made money. New York State is wonderfully positioned because we are farming and dairying at the same time. To fill this market need, we are going to need to make investments, and that's going to create jobs. So that's my second point. Who fills these jobs? One option is like they've done in China, the opposite of what they've done in China. They had one child per family. If the state could figure out a way to incent dairy farm families to have 5 children each, we could have 2 to milk, 2 to take care of the cows and the crops, and 1 to manage the business. I think that would solve a lot of our problems.
We are a pro-family administration.
If that's not palatable, I would say we need to continue to push the federal government to fix this immigration issue. If that's not palatable, I think we need to work on programming that allows us access to unemployed individuals in areas that aren't in the rural community. There are areas in this state where there is underemployment, but typically those aren't where the dairy farms are. So there's opportunity to get those workers onto farms, but we have some transportation hurdles to deal with, and I think that's an important thing that we could talk about. And there's also an argument for reinvestment in new technologies that may not be quite there yet, but folks like Dan are investing in robotics. That's some new technology that's not too far away that helps us mitigate some of these problems. Dairy farms aren't factories. We can't shut them down for 6 months and then start them back up. We have to keep rolling through the high price times and the low price times. We make decisions and investments for generations, and they're very specially used facilities that we're building. In many cases, we're talking about $8,000 to $10,000 investment per cow to add a new cow into the system. I'm encouraged by the dialogue. I'm encouraged by the leadership that you're putting into this. At the end of the day, we need to recognize that we're feeding people, and equally as important, that we're protecting the environment. Thanks.
Well said.
I'd like now to ask Dean Norton, President of the New York Farm Bureau, to make a presentation. Dean?
Thank you. First off, Governor, I would like to thank you for putting this together today, and also for your understanding that agriculture is an economic driver for rural New York. I think the fact that obviously we're here today proves to us that you understand that the impact of creating jobs in rural New York, that agriculture can create those jobs in rural New York. I think another point to be made is the fact that you have appointed Daryl Albertine as your Commissioner of the Department of Agricultural Markets and Joe Martens as your Commissioner at the Department of Environmental Conservation, 2 true partners to New York agriculture, and I don't know that I could have said that in prior administration, so thank you for that. I'm excited about the theme here, open for business. It is your new mantra, and the fact that you're bringing it here to the farming community and to this yogurt summit today is a great opportunity for New York's dairy industry leaders, government leaders, and farmers to transform New York's dairy industry into the global leader in yogurt production. California has a Silicon Valley. New York is the Empire State. I hope that soon we will also be known as the Yogurt Empire, not with Darth Vader. We must work to create new synergies and take strategic actions to grow this opportunity into the formidable industry we know the New York dairy community can be. Action is what has been defined by your administration, and we've already begun to see that with your interest in yogurt processing and the effects that it has on family farms in New York. We have a very productive discussion on moving forward with the streamlining the cost of regulatory processes for our farms here in New York. The Department of Environmental Conservation's proposed one-stop shop for business is a great step in the right direction. Similarly, agriculture and environmental state agencies have increased their funding for nutrient management planning and farm and water quality projects, which are critical to running our farms and increasing dairy production. Of particular interest, we have been encouraged by discussions with your administration in streamlining the CAFO permitting process so that smaller farms can add cows, but also remain environmentally feasible and environmentally conscious here in New York. We have been a leader for the last 20 years in agricultural and environmental management, nutrient management, and manure management, something some of us in this room know very well. New York is looked at as the gold standard for environmental protection and has good standards of water and land, and our farms are proud of that heritage, and we have helped build this program through agricultural environmental management and ag non-point source programs. Improving water quality and environmental health is our ongoing priority. We look forward to our continued work with the state and experts at Cornell University to uphold New York's gold standard when it comes to environmental quality. When it comes to becoming the yogurt empire, there needs to be strategic and smart state investment to have local milk production meet yogurt processing needs today and in the future. The biggest bang for the state's buck comes from programs that help farmers do what they do best, using the most recent research based on innovative practices developed under the guidance of experts at Cornell University and some of our other fine SUNY institutions in New York. Constant improvement and innovation are critical to the health of any industry, and farming is no different, especially in today's global marketplace. The state would be wise to further invest in the dairy profit teams that are run by our Center for Dairy Excellence. These teams of professional advisors work with farms to identify their strengths and weaknesses and give them a workable plan to turn their struggling operations into sustainable businesses with a hope and vision for the future. As I referenced earlier, improving the state's business and regulatory climate will go a long way towards encouraging local milk production. As Carrie said, many small farms are hesitant to grow because of the current CAFO regulations for those farms under 200 or 199, I should say. Open for business means that this aspect of government needs to be leaner, streamlined, and more user-friendly so farmers are willing to take the leap and commit to expanding that milk production. These investments in policy changes will bring a much bigger return with growth in dairy farms that will help their local communities generate jobs and revenue to energize the upstate community. And most importantly, these investments and discussions here today will make sure that New York yogurt is made exclusively from New York milk, and we at New York Farm Bureau are committed to helping you make that goal a reality. I look forward to working with you and your administration, our partners at the Department of Ag and Markets and DEC, as well as Mr. Hooker and his team at Empire State Development Corporation. New York truly is open for business, and I thank you for changing the dialogue and recognizing that agriculture is part of that open for business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean. I want to thank all the presenters for the information you provided. I think it was very informative and very helpful and useful to us. I'd now like to go to a less formal format and kind of open it up a little bit to have more of an interactive dialogue. And I'd ask Greg Wickham, the CEO of Dairy Lee. Greg, if you could kick it off for us and have a little bit more of an open discussion and dialogue about what we need to do here in New York State.
Thanks, Larry, and certainly thanks to the governor for hosting the event today and appreciating the importance of agriculture and specifically dairy and the yogurt business. I work for a farmer-owned cooperative, so our mission is to improve farms' bottom line, help them be more successful both on the marketing side of their milk and as well provide some services to them. Just as background, we manage approximately 950 tractor-trailer loads of raw milk a day throughout the Northeast. Probably over 50% of that, or around 50% of that, is New York State. As some other folks have mentioned, there's a lot of good things happening. One of the best things happening is the investment in the dairy processing infrastructure in New York State. We've been through cycles where it's been okay, been through cycles where it wasn't as good, and as you've heard the success stories around the table, it's excellent at the moment. That portends very good for the future. It's a great opportunity for the dairy industry to grow and build on what it has, and the farms, I think, that I represent are very optimistic, and yet, as we've said, there are some things that we could do better to improve the opportunity for folks to want to expand, particularly on the raw milk side, which is where I'll focus my comments. There's probably 3 or 4 things. A couple have been mentioned. I think the state could certainly be helpful on the environmental regulation side. You've heard from Carrie that farms treat their land very well. 99.9% of the folks want to take really good care of the land, respect the regulations. It would be helpful if we could be as consistent as possible when applying regulations, and it certainly would be helpful to consider perhaps bumping up from 200 cows the state CAFO regulation, if you thought that was appropriate. We certainly have a bit of a constraint with cropland. It takes about 2 acres to support a dairy cow with feed and manure management. Certainly anything the state could do to promote making maximum use of the land for animal agriculture would be great. We ourselves try to match up some crop farmers with some dairy farmers to share back and forth manure going from dairy to crop and the crops going back to the dairy. Manure management is very expensive. The farms, I think, would tell you that are in the room today, they will invest in things that bring them a fair return. They recognize the need to invest in manure management, and yet the return isn't always there as what it needs to be to offer that investment up. And so any support from the state or the federal government is excellent in that regard and very helpful. And I think one of the other things I wanted to mention is, Governor, you spoke about entrepreneurship within government. I think that's great, and that's a very important message. If you ask maybe the average small business person that's observed the last 10 or 15 years, they would say, well, we need to see that. We need to see that there's a new air about it and that the government really wants to work with us and collaborate, so I appreciate what you've said. If you go back 20 years, people thought about investing on their farm. 10 years ago, they thought about perhaps buying a farm up the road. 5 years ago, it was a farm 30 miles away. Now the folks that have money to invest will look everywhere, including out of state, and so we need to present the right atmosphere to make sure those investment dollars stay here. So we really appreciate everything that you're doing and talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And the floor is open for anybody else that would like to share with us some thoughts and advice.
Can I ask a couple of quick follow-up questions? On the CAFO regs, Kerry, you said that the cost per cow would be $2,400 above the
Yes.
capital cost.
It will cost us, yes, so $2,400 per cow to implement the regs.
Why so high?
For one, we have to build a new heifer barn because we have a heifer barn that is not CAFO compliant. It's has a dry lot that's too close to a stream, so we have to walk away from that facility. So building a new heifer facility and then manure storage. And the manure storage is, so you're looking at $200,000 for a barn and probably $200,000 for manure storage. So those are the two biggies.
And if you stay, you go to 199 because you're at a threshold pursuant to the CAFO regs at 199.
That's correct.
And if you go above that, that triggers.
Yes, and when you hit 200, it's on day one. The day that you hit 200 cows is the day that you have to be compliant with the CAFO regs.
So it's a big nut all at once to
It's
handle.
a big chunk all at once.
And then the bigger farms are already CAFO compliant, so you don't have this issue.
Well, we've been working at it for almost a decade, making small incremental investments along the way.
I understand. Second question, why, we were talking about dairy, but the point was made, we're importing fruit, I take it, and other products. Have we had conversations, or should we be having conversations about those other products and increasing production in the state? Is there an opportunity for us there? I would assume if you can buy it in the state, you would rather do that than bring it in from outside, right?
I would suggest you need to identify the fruits that you can get year-round in New York. There are some fruits, some berries that, strawberry for instance, it's only really available 4 weeks of the year, a month a year in June. And I'm sure our friends at Fagé and Shabani and the others are probably need a year-round supply of strawberries. So you'd have to probably check with the industry, fruit industry, what can they provide on a year-round basis, because I'm sure they would love to have New York fruit, but they want to make sure it's a consistent supply.
That's something I think we should follow up on. John, you mentioned whey disposal. Is that, that's an issue? Can you explain that to us?
Well, you know, as a point of background, you know, I said we use 3 pounds of milk to make a pound of yogurt. Well, that means we have 2 pounds of whey that we have to dispose of. And you can't just dump it in the stream. And actually, we operate right next to the Chenango River, so we have to be very careful there. So we have a program where we either use the whey as animal feed, or the farmer's land apply it as fertilizer. But there's very strict limits what can be applied at various points in time. And those limits are getting closer and closer scrutiny all the time because of the Delaware River water concerns. And even though the farmer might be very far away from the Delaware River water basin, fundamentally, even land applying whey becomes an issue. So we are looking at alternatives, you know, but you need scale to either make the whey into electricity. And our whey is unique like that. It's different from cheese whey. Or to find other ways other methods to handle the whey, as opposed to trying to turn back to the farmers to deal with it, because there are environmental limits in terms of what any of the individual farms can handle. I think we're dealing with upwards of 50 farms right now to deal with our whey. So if we bring in, I think we're bringing in north of 75 truckloads of milk a day. We're sending 50 truckloads of whey out a day. And that, you know, that's a big logistical issue, and it's a big environmental, you know, coordination issue.
And my guess is that gets worse as production goes up, obviously.
Well, it gets worse because you have to go further and further out to find the farms that are either in the CAFO program that are using it as food, or that can use it as land application. So, you know, economically, you know, the further a truck goes, the more it costs to dispose of it, et cetera, et cetera.
Last question. Dean, you mentioned the number of things I don't have a lot of experience in, but you mentioned one area, manure management, where myself and my colleagues have much experience in the manure management.
Different type of refuse.
Is that more of an issue on the smaller farms or the larger farms, and what kind of issue is that?
I think it's becoming an issue for all sides of farms. I know specifically on the larger farms, you know, with the CAFOs, we already had the requirements from the 300 animal units and above. But I also know that more and more regulations are coming down from NRCS as far as storage of manure, no matter what size you are. I'm sure Carrie's had some friends from NRCS stop by and visit her about, you know, storage for herself. So there is no size limitation on manure storage. It's an issue that we're having to deal with as an industry to make sure that we are environmentally friendly, and also to make sure that we're using them as nutrients, because they are a nutrient that we put back on the ground to help fertilize our crops. So.
Okay.
This is a good segue into this. I'm in the manure management business. I run a biogas plant that sits on Synergy Dairy, which is run by John Noble. And obviously, we fit into this circle of life. So we take the manure and whey products and other products from other agricultural and food processing waste in Wyoming area, and we take that waste in. We digest that, we pasteurize it, we digest it, and then that product is much more easily applied to the land. So we end up that we've got a product that's taken up by the crops much more rapidly. And that's what's done in Europe, where they have a lot less land and a lot more population. They don't allow application of untreated wastes on the land. I guess that's where the regulations are going. But I would say that I'm very pleased to be here, and New York State is very progressive. I mean, the sense is the first plant that we've ever built in the United States we chose New York State. We chose New York State because the DEC's been helpful, Ag and Market's been helpful, they know what they're doing. At great universities with Cornell and Rochester Institute of Technology, NYSERDA, the New York ISO, all the pieces of New York State work very well for us. And I'm into the kind of the sustainability. I was born and raised in New York State, went to school in New York State. I'm an environmental engineer. And we're into sustainability of the land, sustainability of farming. And part of that is providing a way of treating this manure waste through biogas or some other method. We make power for 1,000 homes, and the process works very well. So we keep a number of industries that are food-producing industries that are not the yogurt industry running because we can take their waste in and treat it in these digesters. And what causes us the greatest problem in New York State? The grid. The grid in New York State doesn't support really much improvements. If you want to go out on a farm, it costs us more than $1 million to upgrade the grid between that small farm and the main power station. And other farms who have approached us are interested, but we can't afford the $1 million that it takes to upgrade the grid. And the only reason we got on this problem is you have another active group in New York State, which is a political group. Senator Schumer actually went to bat for us and helped us get onto the grid. Without that, we wouldn't have even started out. So that, I mean, basically, we're in the manure management system, we're in the sustainability of the land, and, you know, in stewardship, like John Noble had mentioned, we're in land stewardship for the future of New York State.
The economics of the digester, pardon my ignorance, from the farm's point of view, they get back treated waste?
The farm, well, yes, the farm would get back treated waste, and the waste is completely converted. In other words, if it takes 3 years for manure to degrade on the land, eventually, and the possibility of going into the watershed, it takes months. Once it's digested, it goes back on the land. It takes months to go into the land. We can also remove phosphorus if we have to. You know, some places are phosphorus short, some places are need it, and we can remove it and transfer it to places that need it. So actually, it's a much better fertilizer.
The operation of the digester, plus or minus, is sustained by the sale of the power back to the grid, depending on the cost of connecting to the grid.
That's a big piece of it. That's the biggest single problem.
Yeah, if I could add to that, like on our farm, we have a digester. The primary reason most farms put them in is for odor control. And I think that's a large part of the discussion that we need to have, because in New York, we have a lot of neighbors, non-agriculture neighbors. So it's primarily for environmental and neighbor relations is why we do the digesters. But the only way to cash flow them is to sell the electricity. And full agreement that the grid and being able to sell the electricity for a good price is the challenge.
Does it depend on where you locate the digester, the cost of connecting with the grid?
Yeah, but it's cheaper usually to move the electricity than it is to move the manure close to the electric grid.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And plus you want to keep the manure next to your land base, because that's where you're going to apply it. Because you still have the same amount of Valium. A digester does nothing for Valium, and you still have the same amount of nutrients. And the nutrients are incredibly valuable. So, you know, we complain a lot about manure, and it's very costly to deal with it, but it's worth a lot of money as well because of the NP and the K.
Thank you.
Governor, can I comment on this?
Please.
So, and, you know, I don't mean to speak for my friend at FIA, but I'm sure he's dealing with the same kind of way challenges that we're dealing with. One of the things, if you actually convert the whey, is you end up with water. In our particular case, that would end up with excess water going into the Chenango River, which would put us above our permit. So there's also, even if you get a pure product as a result of this technology, there are environmental considerations in terms of the byproduct, which that becomes water. The other part of it is the connection to the grid, as the other speaker spoke to. I can tell you from our perspective where we are, you know, power supply has been a challenge. We're investing north of $10 million to bring a power line in, and it's a very, very slow process, to the point where we actually are running generators because of the length of time it takes to get through the whole situation with running a new power line. That we got some aid through NICEAG program, but still, I'm sure it will cost us north of $10 million to do that.
Have you considered doing a digester to power your plant?
We have considered it. It's a very expensive proposition. It really requires, you know, tens of millions of dollars, you know, frankly, to do that. some insight and ideas from NYSERDA, but it's a big investment. And, you know, even with that, you can't say, well, as a result of having the digester, I'll get off the grid. You need the grid to either sell the power back to you, or to, if the digester goes down, you can't shut the factory down. So you do need both working together.
Governor, I'd like to, we are going to soon be a Greek yogurt operation, and a strained Greek yogurt operation, and that, I think, distinguishes us from the non-strained, and the byproduct that we end up getting is the amount of whey we generate. So if we're going to be the Greek leader or the yogurt leader of the world or the United States, we also have to be the leader in how to manage whey. And the acid whey that we produce in the yogurt is different than sweet whey from cheeses, other cheeses. In New York State, you'll find other products are producing acid whey in addition to the Greek yogurt process. So that solution extends beyond just a strained Greek yogurt opportunity for New York State. You'll find other businesses, Kraft and Friendship, that have acid whey as part of their byproducts as well. So I think with Cornell and other institutions, we need to have also a long-reaching opportunity to use the brain power that we have in New York State, extend that out for opportunities, incentives to make it work economically. 70% is going to be whey of the milk that we use. So we have to be creative. We have to be very good at that, and that will give us a distinct advantage over other folks in the U.S. If we can figure out how to handle acid whey, we'll become a hero, big time, probably even more so than just being the Greek yogurt capital of the U.S. So there's a big opportunity in acid whey to distinguish us from other locations in the country.
Thank you.
That's the opportunity I present, and I look forward to supporting and helping figure out the solution. We're taking it on an international level. We're working with some Europeans. We're working with Canadians. We're working with our R&D team in Colombia to figure out solutions for acid whey and how to make it not a waste byproduct, but actually having value that we can sell. And I think anybody that's dealing with acid whey would love to be able to sell it rather than and put it as a positive to their balance sheet rather than negative. So, and then New York State can benefit from that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Governor, I think one of the things that we've heard loud and clear today is that one of New York's competitive advantages are our natural assets. You know, having such an abundance of water, sometimes too much water, sometimes too little, but that our natural resources are really the foundation of this industry. And I think investments that the state makes in our state's Environmental Protection Fund to help protect those resources is a fundamental way to help grow this industry. I was talking to a dairy farmer earlier this week that had received some funding from the Environmental Protection Fund to help them protect their family farm. They in turn use those state dollars to build a new freestall facility. Essentially, it was a form of equity financing for them to help grow their operation. So one of the things I want to say, Governor, when you asked what works, I think your commitment to helping to rebuild our state's Environmental Protection Fund has been very important. I will say Commissioner Albertine and his staff have also been very, very diligent in not just ensuring that we appropriate money, but that we actually spend those dollars. And I think continuing to be committed towards aligning those environmental investments with the growth of this industry is a really strategic choice. So that's working, and I want to just suggest we continue to make those investments and make them work.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, Governor. As I want to just dovetail a little bit on what Carrie and John were talking about as far as CAFOs. We had a barn fire, it was 20 years ago now. It's amazing how time flies, but we made the decision at that point we were going to grow beyond 200 cows, and we were early enough in the process that we could kind of grow into a medium-sized CAFO, and the process has overall worked. The reason why it's so hard for someone under 200 cows is because farms like ours have been competitively fighting for the EQIP grants from the federal government to expand our our manure storage and whatever else. We had a time to do it. So I think that's part of what Carrie's talking about, is they need time to adjust. And also, a federal CAFO is 300 cows. In New York, it's 200 cows. So it would just, it might make sense to look into raising that so we have more time to have more funds for those smaller farms, because we got federal EQIP funds, but we put at least half of our own cash and sweat equity into that. It wasn't just the federal government giving us money, as well as the Environmental Protection Fund in local New York as well. And I guess the other thing I would say is we talk a lot about Cornell Pro Dairy. They are great. They are excellent. But I just don't want you to forget, too, we've got a couple great SUNY schools, Morrisville, Cobleskill, Alfred, that are doing a great job with our middle management for dairy farms. Kids who go off and don't necessarily want to own the farm, but want to come home and be part of the farm. And it's a lot cheaper. It's not quite as intimidating. We've got a kid who's been working on our farm for the last 3 years. He's leaving on Friday. We're going to miss him a great deal to go to Morrisville. And his reasoning, he's intimidated by Cornell. He's smart. He could handle Cornell. I mean, he's not dumb. He just doesn't want to. Cornell's not for him. So, I mean, the thing is to, really foster those young people.
Stop that Cornell intimidation.
Well, it's Ivy League. So, but anyway, so that's just, and I will say another thing that I wonder to myself as a dairy farmer, why are these yogurt plants building here? And I mean, they built here for a reason, and I'm convinced that it's because the Midwest is oversubscribed with cheese plants. And I'm also convinced, because that's one place where you have milk, and then the far west, their whole model is built on purchased feed. And when you look at $8 corn like we have right now, you're not making any money. And family farms like ours that are growing our own crops, it's a rough road with $8 corn, but you can get through it. But if you're because we're buying 30% of our inputs and growing 70%. In the West, they're buying 100% of their inputs. And it's coming around. The West has grown for years and years and years unfettered, but now with $8 corn, it's a real competitive advantage for the Midwest and the Northeast, because it's just where we are because of our environmental resources.
Got it. Jerry, quick question. If we raise the CAFO regs from the 199, will the small farms add cows?
I think so. And it would buy them time to come into, because we all want to do these things. It's just a matter of paying for it.
Okay.
Governor, I think it'd be very timely to explain what we're doing back home in Cayuga County with our regional digester that we're constructing. We've got 3 different farms that we're going to be bringing the manure into our county campus, which is where we're constructing the facility. And these 3 different farms, when we get finished, after we run it through our composter, we'll be able to use the dried material for bedding, which is bedding, if they're buying sawdust, and any of our dairy farms will tell you it's very expensive. We did select these farms. We obviously don't have a shortage of cows in Cayuga County, but we were able to select these farms within about a 10-mile radius of where we're located, our home base in Senate, in the town of Senate. But the beauty of this is we have a county campus there, and we're going to produce the power to power the whole campus before the grid.
Really?
So
Great.
when you sell back to the grid is when you don't get very much pennies on, maybe 4 cents per the kilowatt, where you can get much, much more ahead of the meter. So we will be able to power the natural resource building, the Cayuga County Jail, 911 Center, as well as the Cayuga County Nursing Home. And the hot water that will be produced from our genset, we're going to pipe up to the jail and tie into their existing boiler system. So this is the win-win situation. And this is working, this type of digester is working very well for the smaller farms. And that's what we're looking at, to make a model for our smaller farms so that 3 farms may centrally locate and work together. But that's what we're trying to accomplish.
The small farms found it economical to ship the waste to your regional digester.
With within 10 miles, you have to, you want it, because it is, that's the biggest
miles.
expense is trucking the manure. So, but the advantage here is the use of the electric by the whole county campus.
Got it.
So
Great
it's,
idea.
very
Congratulations,
good.
it's a great idea.
Thank you, sir.
Mike, did you have your hand up before?
First of all, like everyone else, thank you so much, Governor, for asking us to be here. I think it needs to be said that this is really a rare opportunity right now for this business for the agricultural business, dairy business to expand. I graduated from Cornell in '73, and really it's the first time that I've seen where we've had an opportunity to make a leap forward in the dairy production end. So I hope we do everything we can to take advantage of that. In terms of this ongoing discussion about CAFO size, I guess the one thing that I would like to see, and as I said, we're at 699 cows. That's kind of a joke, because 700 is the next level. That's when you become a large. It would seem to me that it would make more sense to maybe have just one CAFO size, and whether that's 300, 400, 500 cows, I don't know what it is. But something like that as opposed to differentiating between mediums and larges. And maybe also at the same time utilize the expertise of our New York Soil and Water Conservation District people. These people are invaluable to us. Every time we've had a CAFO inspection, which timing of this is perfect, we just had one last week. I hope we passed. I'm pretty sure we did.
Better be careful what you say then, Mike.
Yeah, I know. But these are, even when the DEC inspectors come out, they always call on the soil and water people to be there at the same time, because that's their first response. If someone calls them with a complaint, they call soil and water. And I think that the New York State AEM program, which is just a fantastic program, maybe could be instituted to look at those farms underneath that CAFO size, which would help to bump that minimum size up and take more advantage of the expertise that we have there. Also, to echo some of John's sentiments over there, you want our businesses to get bigger, the labor force has to get bigger, and so we need to put the pressure, and we're fortunate through Senators Gillibrand and Schumer that they are champions in immigration reform, but we need to push that as a state just as hard as we can, because I believe that that's where the dairy industry and a lot of agriculture is going to go, just like it did years ago, when the Italians came in and did the vegetables, and some of us crazy Irishmen thought we should milk cows, but so I do think that we need to be a force in immigration reform. And I guess if I could just put another hat for a minute as the chair of the IDA, I think we need to be looking at what can be done to help rural counties such as ours, which is where these yogurt manufacturers want to be. We've been approached in Cortland County by two different organizations that wanted to get into the yogurt business in a small way. But I think we need to be looking at what we can do to help the rural wastewater facilities to be able to handle this type of waste, and so that we can welcome these yogurt producers in. And I guess beyond that, I would just suggest that the next yogurt summit be held in a building that looks like a milk bottle instead of an egg. Thank you, Governor.
2 points.
It's down at the end of the table.
Thank you very much, Governor, for this. In my lifetime, this is probably the most exciting thing I've seen for dairy in this state. The possibilities of yogurt are endless. A few things that I see that the state could be working on. We need a similar system to the Vermont Cow Power, a voluntary program where people can sign in and pay extra on their electric, and it goes all toward methane digestion in the state on farms. It would help build a lot more digesters in the state. We need a look at the New York State thruway tolls, the 45% on the proposed trucking increase. The trucks haul my milk today into Sorrento, and they run the thruway. They're looking with the thruway toll to no longer run the thruway, to run 5 and 20. Is that the goal of the thruway toll, to drive the shorter hauls off the thruway onto the back roads? It will be, that's going to be part of that increase in toll is going to cause those trucks to move onto the back roads. When you talk about the small farms, if you look in your brochure, you have 855 farms between 100 and 199. If we're going to maintain these farms, at some point in the future, every one of them is going to break that 200 cow threshold. They're going to slowly grow. Why can't we use the AEM program along with the certified nutrient management planners to identify the problems on those farms that are site-specific that need to be fixed, not have to worry about the entire CAFO program? As a large CAFO, it took us 10 years to get there and over $250,000 to make my farm compliant. I'm glad I did. It's far better. We are just finishing a cover on our lagoon that we're spending $300,000 on to catch the methane gas to reduce our fossil fuel use on the farm. These investments are great, but they take time. Instead of having a program in place before CAFO identifies issues that might have happened on a farm 200 miles from me, let's identify the site-specific problems on those farms and fix them and let them grow to that 300 cow threshold. Add 100 cows on Carrie's farm isn't going to make her a polluter. Done right, it can be done right. Thank you.
Well said. Okay.
Just one more, we're gonna.
Some days it's tough to be a spokesman for a cooperative or a dairy farmer, but today I'm proud to be a New York dairy farmer, and thank you for the opportunity. But CAFO's been a lot of discussion here, and certainly it's important in each of our minds. I'm looking at possibility of using a phase-in. I would recommend maybe we use a phase-in program. We have had identified what some of our needs are. Some are silage leachate, some are milk house waste, some are manure management, nutrient management. But if we could phase into that, we've been unable to attain any EQIP funds whatsoever, so it's all off the back of our farms. And for a little background on the industry, we benchmark usually at least in the top half. And this year, my wife was gracious enough to give me a graph not long ago because she does all the financial work, and I'll thank Carol for that. But January, February, and March, we had income over our expenses. April, May, June, July, our expenses are higher than our income. So this is kind of what the trend is in the industry today. Refundable tax credits are a possibility. I know our friends in Massachusetts have used that successfully. And back to the cooperative part, our cooperative owns a plant in Chateauguay. We would like to have natural gas in that plant. We could save $1 million a year, which would go directly back to profit sharing with our producers. So we urge that. And on the second point, I just want to say that the animal rights activists have tainted beautiful rural New York. And I would just ask the legislative people in New York State not to succumb to their irrational demands and keep New York beautiful.
Thank you very much. All this information was great. We're going to take a short break for about 15 minutes. The governor's going to convene with his commissioners to talk to them, and we're going to come back in 15 minutes and continue the program. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats? We will reconvene momentarily.
I know, that's terrible. No, but and you were coming right then, I think, or you're off. They're coming in. So, anyway, no, you're all right.
No, it's the same mic. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats? We will be reconvening momentarily.
You say we're going to mingle afterwards, we can have a coffee.
Are you?
Yeah, governor's going to stay.
No, the yogurt.
Yeah, yeah. And then Dean Norton goes in. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. We're now going to hear from a number of our state representatives. I'd like to first start. Where are you?
Here he is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm blocking him.
He played
Another protocol violation by me.
He played a trick on me. He was over there for a second, the early part. I'm going to first ask Commissioner Obertine, our Commissioner for Ag and Markets, to speak.
Thank you, Larry. And before I go too much farther, I certainly want to recognize the governor. And I mean this, Governor, when I tell you that, having, as you well know, I've had the opportunity to serve in government here in New York State in several different capacities. And, for the first time, and I think most of the people in this room would clearly agree with me, for the first time, agriculture has a seat at the table, and deservedly so, and is being recognized as the economic driver that it is, and I mean that. Thank you. So, as State Commissioner of Ag and Markets, it's my job to ensure that the state's agricultural industry is vibrant and agribusiness is thriving. The most important message that I have to the people in the industry on behalf of the governor is that the state government, we don't want to be an impediment to your success and your business. We want to help your business be successful. Now, there was a point in time in state government where that was a laugh line. Not so much anymore. Today, first and foremost, we're here to listen. And then building on that, we want to work in a collaborative way to offer solutions to the problems that we've identified right here this morning. I know firsthand the challenges that our state's dairy industry face, not the least of which are regulations, competition, production cost, and the list goes on. But New York also has a lot going for it, not the least of which is our proximity to the markets, the quality of milk that we produce, and our capacity to produce milk and with our available natural resources. We need to harness the strengths and work with our partners in government and industry to take advantage of all the assets that we have here in New York State. And right now, farmers and other industry members sit next to ag and market staff on regional economic development councils. And I might point out 9 out of 10 of these councils have identified agriculture as a priority economic sector in their region, in their strategic plan. This year's round of funding under the council's totaled more than $56 million for food and agricultural sectors, including some related to dairy and yogurt production. And this year, the governor has dedicated $3 million to agricultural development through the consolidated funding application, and those awards will be awarded this fall. This is good for agriculture, but we also know that there are concerns within the industry, and some that we clearly heard here this morning. Compliance burdens associated with concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, have stifled growth for small farms seeking to expand. For a farm to increase over 200 animal units costs money and time and money that could be reinvested into the operations to make it more efficient and environmentally and economically sustainable. The governor and I believe this is something we can address immediately. So today, I'm pleased to announce that New York State is rebalancing the CAFO permit process to address the environmental and economic sustainability. We are immediately increasing the animal threshold required for a CAFO permit from 200 to 300. Simply put, this will make it much easier for small farms to grow. So on behalf of the industry, I want to again thank the governor for listening to the industry. This administration will continue to listen and continue to explore new ways to provide assistance to farmers across the state, including technical assistance, financing, and increased food processing capacity. Also, as we move forward, one of the things that we are focused on, and the governor's been focused on this right from the start as long as I've been involved with this administration, and no pun intended, it's knocking down silos between agencies. And it's my pleasure to introduce a friend, turn the microphone over to a friend, a colleague, Commissioner Martens.
I'd like to give my first minute to Larry, though.
Commissioner, just as a point of privilege, I just want to put what we're doing now in its proper perspective. When I opened up today's summit, I said that we were here to listen, learn, and to act. And if you know anything about this governor, if you watched him and paid attention to him over the last 19 months, it's all about action. It's all about acting. We went back there. It didn't take more than 10, 15 minutes. The governor heard all of you very loud and very clear. And what you're hearing right now from Commissioner Albertine, what you're going to hear from Commissioner Martens, what you're going to hear from Gil Quiones and Pat Hooker, and then myself, are first step actions based on just what we heard from you today, what this governor, his legislative partners, the state government is going to take on behalf of our dairy farmers, our yogurt partners, to move this ball forward. This today is a first step. We're going to convene another meeting in a couple of months to follow up on things, but today is the first step on actions that we're going to take and actions that we're going to follow up on to move the ball forward. Commissioner.
Thank you, Larry. And I just want to start by saying that if we have any cold storage problems in New York, I think we could use this room to solve some of them. But before I follow up on Commissioner Albertine's remarks, I just wanted to reemphasize something that I've been doing as commissioner, and I have my team over here, Mark Gersman, Jim Tierney, and Jackie Lundrum, who have been working nonstop to make DEC more of a friend to agriculture. It was the direction the governor gave me when I became commissioner. It was not something he had to convince me to do, because I had been working closely with agriculture in my previous life. I'm proud to say that we have, the Open Space Institute had a conservation easement on Ooms Farm and worked with them over the years. I've worked with lots of people in this room, and I'm no stranger to agriculture.
Without a strong agricultural economy in New York, we all lose, period. We lose from an environmental standpoint and from an economic standpoint. And, you know, kudos once again to the governor for recognizing it right off the bat. He directed us to be, not only that is New York State open for business, but it is open for agriculture. They go hand in hand. I want you to know also that I think I've established a reputation of having an open door policy. I want to compliment Dean Norton on your excellent staff at the Farm Bureau. We have frequent meetings with them. We are very focused on identifying problems and solving them, not talking about them forever, but solving them. And we've already had some good successes with impediments to the aquaculture industry. Mark Gersman has instituted I think, a very progressive policy that we're working on for self-audit programs, which I think has a lot of potential in the agricultural sector. And, you know, we've been working on trying to make CAFO as user-friendly as possible. We have a ways to go, and I've heard things today that are going to be helpful to me. I also heard, I think it was John and Kelly, John said that he was going to kind of take the other end of the spectrum. Well, I sort of heard the same thing. I heard that CAFO works, it's effective. I also heard that we need flexibility, that, and it was very reassuring to hear that across the board that environmental protections are what everybody is interested in. Nobody's trying to avoid obligations. Nobody wants bad water quality. We are 100% together on that. But we are going to emphasize flexibility. As the commissioner said, we are going to raise the threshold to make it easier for people to transition and add cows to the herd. We can do that. I heard complaints about consistency in enforcement. Again, we're trying very hard to be consistent. We have knocked down silos. We are talking to ag and markets continually so that we have the same message. And it's not just ag and markets, it's the NRCS and soil and water conservation districts. We all want to be working as a team. One of the things that I know, it didn't come up much here today, but is it's, you know, 2 layers of regulators is not a good thing. The federal government has CAFO rules. We have CAFO rules. You shouldn't have to deal with both. And in New York, we want to keep it simple. We want to keep the paperwork requirements simple. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job holding off EPA in that regard so that you're getting a consistent message from New York. I do want to announce that effective last night, I went and checked and it works. We do have a new portal in the DEC website that is focused on agriculture. It lays out what the programs are at DEC, regulatory requirements, so you can go to one place. We also have an e-business initiative so that we want to be able to do things online. We want to make them, again, one-stop shopping, as Dean referred to. That was an initiative we started several months ago, and we are getting close. We want to make it easy for agriculture in New York. And that, again, I think it sounds like I'm preaching to the choir, but we're not about sacrificing environmental quality. We can do both, and I think we've got a huge win-win situation here. We're going to be looking at the fees that are charged by DEC. We're going to be looking at financial incentives, again, so that people can comply with the practices on farms that help protect water quality. You're right, we can't expect the farmers to do everything. We need to assist them, and that's what we intend to do. And I know there was a lot of talk about digesters, and DEC obviously has an interest in digesters and promoting them, but Gil is much more of an expert than I, and I want to turn it over to Gil Canones now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm proud to be part of the governor's team. My name is Gil Quinones. I'm the president and CEO of the New York Power Authority. We are the largest state-owned public power in the United States. We produce about 20 to 25% of electricity in the state, largely through clean hydroelectric power. We also own about 1/3 of the high voltage transmission lines that is part of our grid. But most importantly, under Governor Cuomo's leadership and under what he called entrepreneurial approach to government and the new way of doing economic development through the Regional Economic Development Council, we are deploying our low-cost power to spur private investment and to create jobs and promote economic development in the state. I heard a lot of very encouraging feedback from you about creating electricity through anaerobic digestion process, whether it's from food waste or from cow manure. And I am pleased to let you know that the New York Power Authority is ready and able to work with you to build community or regional digester sites to produce electricity as well as manage your environmental compliance and sustainability needs. I also pledge that I will work with our partners in government like NYSERDA to look at the incentives structure that we have in place so that for those of you who would like to build digesters individually at your own sites because you have the right scale to do so will be facilitated correctly by those incentives. And so it's very exciting. I heard some really interesting applications such as capturing the waste heat, basically building the digester to serve the electricity needs within a campus or within a facility and capturing waste heat for your process needs, and you have a need for hot water for either your process side or for the cleaning purposes. And so I think our role is as NYPA and our partners and other energy-related agencies in the state is to help you crack that code, finding the right configurations and business models. And what we're going to do is to work with you very closely with that. And so it's really about collaboration. As the governor said, it's about partnerships. And now in looking in the future, we also heard from you a lot of the need for R&D and innovation. And now I would transfer the podium or the mic to my friend Pat Hooker here, who will talk about how we as government can help drive innovation and all the art of the possibilities in your industry.
Thanks so much. So I'm Pat Hooker. I work at Empire State Development, and I am maybe the person within the administration that sits at the most of the intersection of agriculture and then the food processing sector. And how do they intersect? How do they intertwine? We've all used the word synergy here a great deal today. This booklet really shows very, very clearly what happens when we plant a field of hay or we plant a field of corn and we take it all the way to a cup of yogurt. The economic multiplier is astounding. It's like nothing else we do in agriculture and in food. And so I couldn't help but think, and in our discussion back here for a few minutes, how do we go to the next level? A number of us here in this room have been involved in other efforts, other attempts over the years, and there have been some positive things out of that. Northeast Dairy Leadership Team, the Farm Viability Institute has endeavored to pull the industry together to see what that R&D and technical assistance may be needed. I want to say that at this point in time, we are going to commit to see if there is a better way to do that. Is there a way, is there a need to create a center to bring this out? We heard about acid way before. We heard about technical problems that have to be dealt with. We have institutions like Cornell that can bring these multiple disciplines together along with people in the room here in the private industry and in government. And so whether it's research, education, economic outreach for farms, all of these things I think are important. So I think we need to take these next, as Larry pointed out, some time to take this information back, to think about it, and consider going forward with a center that can take us from cow comfort to new product development to acid way. We heard a couple other things today. One is, where might we go in this business with bringing some of the rest of agriculture forward? Fruit, aseptic processing. Some of us know we don't have one of those facilities in the state. The state of New York actually has 2 facilities now. We need to come from this meeting and see, is there a role possibly for these larger state-owned facilities? Or is there an interest in partnering with a manufacturer, partnering with a separate entity to do this kind of business development so that we can produce fruit, mix it with yogurt, keep it local, as we've heard here before. I also heard about advertising, and Empire State Development is where tourism is. Empire State Development is where Open for Business, the governor's Open for Business campaign is. And so if there are companies around this table that want to do advertising and marketing, we want to be a part of that, and we will work with you on that. I'm really looking forward. If you have ideas, let's get with you and work on those. We've seen from the governor's regional council model the value of collaboration. The governor talked early on today about the public-private partnership, and that's how we will drive this forward. So as we look into the possibility of a center dealing with these other things, the leading issues for us will be the question that Governor posed early on, and that is, what is government doing wrong, and how do we become a full partner? And let's work forward on a new public-private partnership.
Thank you, Pat. Just a couple of other takeaways that we heard today during our discussion. One is a number of federal issues were raised. So we're going to form a subgroup to address and collaborate on those federal issues, whether it's immigration reform, the Farm Bill. There were a number of other federal issues that were raised. So we can then put together a meeting with our congressional delegation and work closely with our federal partners, not only with our delegation, but with the federal government, so that we're connected together and collaborating as one. The other thing that came up for discussion here is the cost of the interconnections from digester to the grid. We need to crack the code. We need to figure this out. So the other thing we're going to do is I will convene with Gil Quinones, our investor utilities, and especially the Public Service Commission. And we're going to sit down and figure out a way and a plan on how to create the incentives, how to lower the cost in order to create and allow for these interconnections to take place from digester into the grid. So those are at least 2 additional takeaways that we're going to begin to immediately follow up on, as well as some other things that we heard today. Before we close today's meeting, and I'm going to ask Dean Norton to make from the Farm Bureau to make some final comments, I just want you to know that when we end the meeting, we are not running away. The governor is staying here, I'm staying here, the commissioners, everyone is staying here. We look forward to continuing the conversation over a cup of coffee, a yogurt, or some water here. So we look forward to staying here and continuing the dialogue. And as I said before, we will convene a follow-up meeting in the fall. In the next few months, we will contact all of you and follow up from what we learned and what we discussed here today. And with that, I just ask Dean if you have some final thoughts and comments before we close today's summit.
First, Governor, I'd like to thank you again for putting this together today, and also for the announcement that the Commissioner made of moving the animal units from 200 to 300 for the medium-sized cables in New York. I applaud you for that decision and the swiftness with which you made that decision, so thank you. I hope we all go away here enthused about the fact that we are now at the table. Many of our presenters here today probably have been around a long time, and we always thought that we were at the children's table, not at the adults' table. I thank you for bringing us to the adults' table. I also thank you for breaking down the silos. As I mentioned earlier, we always felt that we were not allowed to go see the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation unless he called us. Now he's calling us, asking us to come and visit. I appreciate that. It's a welcome change. There's a lot here. We have a great opportunity. But I think we need to remember what the great opportunity requires investment on your part, our part. Cornell University is our land-grant university. If we grow this industry to what we all expect, Dean Bohr is going to be very busy. And I think Dean Bohr would like to be very busy. Much. So I would encourage that we continue to look at ways that we can fund the College of Ag and Life Sciences, working through their extension teams, pro-dairy. That's going to be very important as we go forward. I'm sure Tom would like to be as busy as the dean. the profit teams I mentioned earlier, and FarmNet. And a lot of us probably think FarmNet is that's the place where we go when farms are struggling, but it's a place where farmers go for counseling, a place where farms go when they want to transition from one generation to the other. So we need to remember FarmNet. Land availability. Greg spoke about that earlier. There's a great competition for viable farmland here in New York. And I think we need to find ways to piece together those opportunities where someone is a willing seller, and we got whether it's a young producer or a producer that wants to increase their size, that we put them together. Financing. I know there's many members here from the financing community. This isn't going to be done without some help from those folks. We're going to need those capital needs. I know we have various state programs available to us to do that, whether it's a link deposit or whether we have our farm worker housing program. So they're a partner with us as we grow this industry. And last but not least, I think it's been well spoken. We are stewards of the land. We believe in environmental compliance. And I think I walk away here from this telling you that we want to be good stewards of the land. We feel we are good stewards of the land. And we want to work with you to make sure that we continue that on. And as John mentioned earlier, we're doing this because we want to do it for the next generation and the generations after that. So I applaud you. I thank you again. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah. Let me say this. First, these are first steps. We need a short-term plan here, a medium-term, and a long-term plan. And these are concrete first steps that I feel good about. The CAFO reg change to 300 will make a big difference for the small farms. Now you can say, well, look, the productions, the numbers are going to come from the big farms, and I get the numbers, but I want to see those small farms expanding. There is capacity there, and they're also part of the fabric of this state. And it's also symbolic. Changing those CAFO regs, I think, is going to send a different signal. It should send a different signal that we are serious about this, and we get it, and we get the role of the state and how the state can be a positive or negative, and we want to make the changes. The NIPA, Gil Quinones, which is not normally a partner in these type of activities, but he's coming to the table. These digesters we're very excited about. I don't really understand the economics. What's the tipping point? Do they work regionally? Could they just be at bigger facilities? But he is here and fully committed to working through the digester issue. The connection with the grid, Larry, as the Secretary to the Governor, is going to meet with the PSC because I believe there's a regulatory issue there. We want to, as an administration, encourage digesters, alternatives, plugging into the grid. If it's not cost effective to plug into the grid, then you're never going to have these other power generating ideas, which may make some utility companies happy, but it doesn't make me happy. So we're going to have the PSC work on those issues. So I think we have some good initial first steps that show we're serious. But we're going to have to come back to it. We're not going to solve this in one meeting, and the continuity is important. And my last point is this. I understand when you said you're at the table. You know, part of it in life, I think, is giving up yesterday and focusing on tomorrow. Forget the relationship of yesterday. Forget what you thought about government. Forget how government treated you. Forget anything negative. Forget it. This is a new day. It's a new team. We weren't here. And it's not a question of being at the table. If this is going to work, we're going to do this together. It's not that you are just at the table presenting and your voice is heard. This has to be a real partnership in the truest sense of the word. Because other parts of the country are doing it. Other parts of the world are doing it. So this is going to require both of us, all of us, focused on the goal and doing it together. You know, I'll end where I started. We talked about entrepreneurial spirit. You're entrepreneurs. The concept of entrepreneurial is there's a moment of opportunity, a window of opportunity, and you seize it. There is a window of opportunity for upstate New York. This is one of the best private sector market opportunities upstate New York has had in 30, 40 years. I don't know when we get another one. I really, really don't. And that entrepreneurial spirit is when you see an opportunity, grab it and make it happen. Seize it. The initiative has to be yours. This is our time. This is our time. All the demographics on those yogurt numbers, they just keep going up. They just keep going up. And that's good for the yogurt industry. It's good for the dairy industry. It's good for the state of New York. So let's seize the moment. Thank you for being part of it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.